Hey, and welcome to another edition of Knoxville Dirt Digest.com. Mike Roberts along for the ride. Well, as promised last week, we have part 2 of a segment we did with Tony Bokhoven a couple weeks ago. Had a little bit of technical difficulty. We got things ironed out. We want to bring that show to you, of course. Again, you can catch part 1 anytime at KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. But we do have part 2 available. We're going to take a look at that after these messages from Seafoam.
Tired of doing this? Get a can of this and spend more time doing this. Seafoam helps engines start easier, run smoother, and last longer. Seafoam. Seafoam! Help your engine run smoother and last longer with Seafoam motor treatment. Just pour it in. Seafoam works to clean your fuel system, clean your oil system, and stabilizes fuel up to 2 years. Make the proven choice. Seafoam motor treatment. Available everywhere automotive products are sold.
Hey, race fans, welcome to KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. As promised, Tony Bokhoven is still in the chair from last night, and we're going to get right back into it. We're not even going to hold back any punches. It's time to take off the gloves. You and I, mano a mano.
Again?
You're scared to death, I can tell. We kind of wrapped up with talking about the racing last night. Before that, we were talking about Tim Trier and Jack Hurway.
Yeah.
You know, I had the opportunity of a lifetime and didn't realize it the first year. When I came in and told Cappy, hey, here you got a spot open, you know, and hey, I want to be your guy upstairs, you know. And although we knew each other, we didn't know each other back then at all.
Yeah.
And it's really, your story is almost eerie compared to what mine is. It's clear back to high school and everything. But the bottom line is, Cappy says, look, you've been doing radio for a few years. I like what you're doing in the pits. He says, I want you to be a pit reporter. I got somebody else coming in. And I was young and dumb back then. I'm like, oh, yeah, who you got? Who you got, you know? Well, Tim Trier's coming back. Good choice. You know? How do you go up against that?
You stood no chance.
Yeah. The funniest thing about that whole thing is Tim probably should have definitely killed me and thrown both of us off the top of that press box a couple times, because our first few years, really, but our first year especially, we always had a pre-race meeting in the press box after the regular meeting downstairs.
Yeah.
And for some reason, you and I couldn't agree on what time of day it was, or if it was day or nighttime.
I can't help that you were always wrong. I mean, I tried my best to explain to you why you were never right, but you just didn't get it.
And again, my friend, my pal, but Trier would sit there, and it was like a tennis match for him. He just like back and forth, because we would yell at each other. We screamed at each other, you know. And why he didn't slap us around or whatever.
Tim was a wise man.
Yeah.
You know, it's why he was so good at what he did at the schools in Newton and all that stuff that he was a part of. And, you know, he just let us get it out of our system.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, now we can go to work. You guys are done fighting. Now we can go to work.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know this. When Tim got out of announcing, he still ran the scoreboard once in a while. He still participated in racing. In fact, he still worked in Des Moines for Mick.
Right.
Him and Mickey up there and announced up there.
Yeah.
But he stepped away from Knoxville Raceway for a while.
Yeah, and then he came back and, to your point, ran the scoreboard a little while.
Yeah.
I think he told me one time he'd done just about everything here. He'd worked in the concession stands at a time in his life, and so it was so fun. He would sit over in the corner running the scoreboard, doing the crosswords out of the Des Moines Register.
Mm-hmm.
He'd sit over, he'd be doing the Des Moines, like you think he was really focused on his crossword puzzle, and then all of a sudden he'd be typing on the computer and he'd be back over here. He totally wasn't paying attention to anything else but his crossword puzzles. So,
but never missed a beat.
Never missed a beat.
What was it like for you? I know it was like for me when Cappy said, hey, Tim Trier's going to be upstairs. You know, I want you to get a little more seasoned and da-da-da.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to actually finally work with Tim?
Well,
on a consistent basis.
Yeah, it was awesome. Of course, I knew Tim again because of growing up around him. But I looked up to him as an announcer because I loved listening to him, and he had so many cool catchphrases and stuff like that. And I was just really nervous that here I'm brand new to announcing, no background in it, no training in it. Working with a guy that was as good as Tim.
Yeah,
and so,
a natural is what I called him.
Yeah, but again, what he did so well was, he made you just feel like it's another night. No big deal. We're on the same level. And so it was comfortable. It was easy. There was no pressure. He taught me some things. It was just awesome. And even after he retired, then he would come to the races still.
Sure.
And, for me, even when I see Jack in the grandstands now, I still, have the inclination to want to call them out in the grandstands, because to me they are the announcers at Knoxville.
Yeah,
right?
we still do that. We address it, and
right.
we can have fun with it for one thing.
And Tim was one of those guys that never liked attention. He didn't want any attention.
Right.
And so he would get really embarrassed. And so I just remember telling him one night, I'll stop calling you out if you come up and announce one night with me, just one more time.
Mm-hmm.
So like the next week, then he came up and called a heat race, and he said, "There, are we good now?"
Yeah. That's it.
That's it. But I missed him. He was such a smart guy. He had a great sense of humor. But his voice is so recognizable, and even today, when you listen to those old videotapes and you can just barely hear the announcer in the background, like it's so easy for me to pick him out. I mean, because he just had that unique voice, and so to me, Tim Trier and Herway and then Dennis Wilson. Dennis was a great guy too. Really fit in well with Jack and I. I felt like we went to Pennsylvania. The three of us one time took a trip out there. Went to a bunch of racetracks and stuff like that. Had a great time. But Wilson was awesome. Learned some life lessons from him, I've been really lucky to announce with some really cool people here.
See, you traveled with those guys. You traveled with me one time.
Yeah, but I've never had fun with you.
No, but we rode.
I got arrested with you.
Wait a minute, statutes of limitations here. We rode back from Texas one time together. I rode with you, if you recall. Do you remember that?
Huh.
Well, my ride down got rid of me while I was down
there.
That's another story. But anyway,
You had a chili bowl trip like that once,
we
too.
We did, yeah. So it wasn't exactly the same style, but I made the driver mad either way, so it was something else. But let's talk about different announcers. You brought up Tim. You brought up Jack. You hold the record, my friend.
That's only because I've been here so long. You make it sound like
you don't even know where I was going. You don't have a clue.
You said it to me before.
You do. After Tim left, first of all, I'm going to back up a little bit because if you remember correctly, I did announce one night up in the suite.
Yeah,
it was Maytag night.
Forget it.
Yeah, I sucked at it. I did. I'll be the first one. Actually, you told me I did a good job. And I said I won't be back.
Yeah.
Because Tim wanted to switch roles because of Maytag night.
Right.
And he wanted to be down in the photo. He said, "Hey, do you mind?" I'm real cool. He's like, "I don't care the way beside light." Sure, I've been waiting to get upstairs.
Right.
This is my shot. I got up there, and I say this to this day. I hated every minute of it. It's like watching it on TV because you're inside that suite. You can't smell it. You can't taste it. You can't touch it.
I think you would have had a different opinion. The first couple of years when they built the suites, we announced at the top of the suites.
Outside.
At a makeshift counter.
Yeah.
Because Herway hated being inside at first. And so he convinced one of the Fair Board members, they mounted an old bleacher seat there and wired in a light. And that's where we announced from,
Yeah.
You probably would have liked it better there. But I don't know. There's definite benefits to being inside. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
The first few years I announced here, it was still the old press box over there, which I think is sitting out back here somewhere.
Was anyway. I don't know if it's still there or not.
And so we announced right next to it outside. We didn't announce inside.
Right.
And so you got the experience, right, of all the fans being right there.
Sure.
And if they didn't like something on the racetrack, they turned around and told you why it was your fault. And, that had its own challenges of being outside.
Did you have a beer
like
thrown at you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not thrown at me, but I had a beer spilled on the table once.
Okay.
Guy, that was back.
Herway spilled his beer.
No, back then they sold beer. It was tap beer,
right?
And they were really tall plastic cups,
32 ounces. I remember.
And I remember a guy they was standing on the bleachers because you could stand on the bleacher seat and your head was like right at our table height.
Yep.
And something happened and he went like this with his beer and just threw it right over his shoulder, right on top of our table.
Yeah.
And just soaked all of our stuff, and it was a disaster.
Drank 7 of those one night.
Ugh.
Yeah. Tried to jump the infield ditch afterwards.
Yeah.
Was not pretty at all.
Yeah. There's probably not many people that remember the infield ditch.
Got an ambulance right out of that deal. So, I know different Mike Roberts back then. But anyway.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the record a little bit. Tim retires again.
Yep.
That first year, I know it was Kathy. I know it was George. Was that the first year after Tim?
Yes, George was after Tim.
Yeah.
Then Kathy. And that Kathy only lasted 2 nights.
Right. It's because it is not an easy gig.
No.
I'll be the first one to say that.
No, it's
There's
not.
too much going on up there, and even as seasoned as you are, and I'll use last weekend because you were by yourself upstairs. I was by myself downstairs, and I'm throwing text messages at you like I do every night, not remembering that you're the only one up there.
Right.
You know,
It's, back then, when we started back then, it was 2
Right.
classes.
Right.
No big deal. Now it's 3 classes. It's 100 cars. It's all the sponsor stuff that has to happen. All the people coming in and out of the booth. And it's so different from when I started. It's way different. But then Kathy lasted a couple weeks. I think she just, back then, fans could get on hose heads and hide behind a screen name
Right.
and tell you everything they did wrong and why they were right and you should never breathe air again.
Right.
And,
Right.
and I, that's not for everybody.
No.
And so anyway, so she opted to continue.
Yeah.
And then Justin came along.
Justin Zock.
Won't ever forget it. Cappy came to me and he said, "There's this kid from Minnesota. He's announced races before. He's going to be here. His name's Justin." Okay,
Right.
fine. So Justin comes strolling up this one night, and I don't know him from Adam.
Neither
Never
did I.
met him before.
Yeah.
Gets up there, announces, not bad.
His shirt's like 3 sizes too big.
right, and
Yeah.
wadded up. It was,
Yeah.
because he back then lived out of his car, basically.
Literally.
He stayed in his car a lot. He didn't actually live in his car. But anyway,
When he came down here, he lived in his car, dude. I'm not pulling punches. He lived in the car.
well, it's because he didn't have a hotel to stay in.
He
but-
could afford it.
So he announced and was decent, and then a couple weeks went by, and so we started to kind of like be friendly with each other, And I said, "So where'd you announce?" He's like, "Oh, I've never announced before."
Are
He's
you
like-
kidding me?
He's like, "I told Cappy that, but I've never announced before." And so Justin and I announced together for 7 years, maybe 7
Yeah.
or 8 years, I think, something like that.
He was a stat guy.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
He was Rain Man. Like,
Yeah.
he remembered all kinds of stuff, from way back. Even stuff before he announced,
Right.
And he carried a spiral notebook, and then every race he went to, he wrote down everything. Time trials, where they started and finished in heat races, where they started and finished in their feature. So every page had a night's worth of racing notes on it.
Mm-hmm.
And he referenced it all the time. And anyway, seven probably are the most fun years I've ever had announcing, quite honestly. No offense to you or Krug, but
I like the stories that we can tell about Zock because there's the story, and I'm going to do it. There's a story where he hit an ATM pole or something like that with his car one time.
he was a terrible driver.
Yeah, he was.
So whenever we go
awful.
somewhere, I would drive because I rode with him once and was like, that's it.
You rode in his car?
Yeah,
Did you get a penicillin shot out of that or not?
I should have.
You should have, exactly. I remember when he finally got a camper.
Yeah, the old WWRF trailer.
Exactly. He thought he was in 7 heaven, buddy. He had it made.
But for him, that was a big deal because
Yeah.
he had went from a Monte Carlo to a minivan.
Right.
And I'll give him credit though, man. He had that minivan. It was set up.
Yeah.
He had it all dialed in, and then he had that WWRF trailer.
Do you remember the first time he ever spent the night in an air-conditioned facility, though?
It was in the elevator,
He
wasn't it?
was. He got stuck in the
Yeah, it was in
elevator.
the elevator. That's right. I do remember that. Yeah. But I miss working with Justin. But he's since, started a family and
Oh, yeah. He's got it going
went on
now.
to the second page of his life, and that's good for him. But we had a lot of fun. He and I went to a lot of races together. We stayed in a lot of shitty hotels together, going because he would never spring for a hotel. He'd be like, "Oh, we'll just stay in the car." And I'm like, "No, we're staying in a hotel." And so we'd find the cheapest place we could find, and some of them you just kept your clothes on, your coat on, because you
Right.
didn't want to lay on the sheets of the bed because they were just rat holes. But we went to a lot of races, had a lot of fun. He worked for Midstate Racing News back then.
Right.
And,
Howard Millinger.
so he would get these papers, and his pay was the dollar that he sold the paper for.
Right.
So that's how it, they didn't pay him anything else. And so won't ever forget, we went to Donaldson one night, and he had a stack of papers. He said, "Hey, these are last week's papers, but I think we can sell them." I'm like, "All right, $1 a piece."
Yep.
So we're walking through the stands, and I'm facing one side of the aisle, he's facing the other side, and we're going up the bleachers, and this lady says, "Hey, is so-and-so, do you have anything?" He said, "Yep, they're in the back, like the 3rd or 4th page from the back. Here you go."
Oh, no.
Took the $1, and off he went.
Oh, no.
Had no idea who the kid was,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But we sold like 200 of them that night, So Justin was living big that night, but
We had a discussion one time in the press box about we thought that he was actually filthy rich, if you remember that
yeah,
night.
you still think that.
I still think he's stashing money left and right, dude. Or married into it now. Who knows? But
You're wrong about that.
all right, after
Yeah.
Justin, then we had to
Okay.
find another announcer for you.
All right, so Justin leaves.
Yeah.
Then I met this pimple-faced, squeaky-voiced, skinny kid at the Harris Clash.
Who was here a couple weeks ago.
And I listened to he did the webcast for whoever was Barry Braun's outfit, whatever it was back then.
Okay.
And I heard him. I listened to him a little bit that night, and thought, man, not bad at all. Like knew all those IMCA guys, and knew everything about.
Was
him.
he 18 yet?
No.
I can say,
No.
yeah.
And so anyway, we needed somebody, and
Right.
couldn't find anybody. And Cappy's like, well, there's a guy that sits in the stands that would like. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
we can't do that. We did that with George. That's how we
Right.
got George.
Yeah.
And that didn't turn out so well. And so he's like, well, got any better ideas? And I said, yeah. How about Blake Anderson? He's like, I don't even know who that is. And so I tell him who it is. And so one way around the horn, I get his phone number. And Cappy's like, you can call him and ask him if he wants to come down and give it a shot. And so some way or another, I think I got the phone number from Denny Gravenbauer or something like that, and called him up and said, hey, it's Tony, blah, blah, blah. Would you like to come and announce at Knoxville? And he thought it was a joke. He's like, nuh-uh. And I'm like, no, really, you need to be here Saturday night. And so he came. And, like everybody, when they're here the first time, they're
Got the shirt off of Justin Zuck, which was actually 3 sizes too big for Blake then. So.
right. but they're so awestruck, right?
Right.
If he would have relaxed that night, he would have been 10 times better than he was that night.
Sure.
But he was just a kid,
Right.
and so he did fine. And anyway, so after the races, Cappy came over and right in front of Blake, he says, well, what do you think? Should we keep him or not? And it's like, well, he's sitting right here,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I guess we better.
I can't say no now. Cal.
Right. And so Blake came,
Right.
and oh man, how long he was here? Long time.
I don't think it was as long as we
7
think.
years
Yeah, it
again?
was 7
I mean,
years probably.
I say that's a long time for
Yeah, for you, that's a record.
So then he went to work for USAC,
Right.
And then that's when he left the first time. He went to work for USAC.
Well, he came up to, I think he talked to you, and he came up to me and he goes, hey, I got this opportunity.
Yeah.
What do you think I should do? I said, dude, he was like 20 or 21 then.
do
Maybe.
it. Right.
I said, you're not, no commitments, take off.
Yeah, for sure.
So
he did that, and then Craigie boy.
Yeah. Look where Blake is now, though, All-Stars, man.
Yeah, I'm so proud of him.
Yeah.
Because he still to this day, some nights I text him or I'll call him and be like, hey, dude, this is what you need to do.
Right.
Because Blake's a fan like all of us, right? And just like I do some nights, he gets really cranked up.
Oh, yeah.
And Blake Anderson can talk faster than anyone on this earth can listen.
Yep.
If he wants to.
Auctioneers, what I call him.
Yeah, and so some nights I'll text him like, I can't listen that fast,
Yeah.
But I'm super proud of him. He's turned into one of the best announcers in the business and does a great job. And the All-Stars are lucky to have him, quite honestly.
He does get cranked up. You get cranked up. In fact, I tease you about going through puberty once in a while because you guys really get going after it. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about more announcing, believe it or not. I know it's hard to believe, but you've announced a lot more places since the time down at Eddyville in the Dwarf Cars.
Yep.
We'll do that coming up next on KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. Okay. Do about 10-minute segment here. We're done. We're out of here. Maybe not even that long.
We probably better say something nice about Krug.
Why? Ready, Mikey?
Yep.
Hey, and welcome back to KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. As we broke away, we said we were going to talk about places we were going to go forward and what you've done since the old Dwarf Car announcing days. You mentioned Chris Krug, and we got to talk about Chris a little bit. He is our little brother from another mother that was adopted by his second cousin.
Yeah, I don't have any I have some stepbrothers, but I don't have any real brothers, and so I kind of rank him right there with that brother that if I ever was going to have one, that's the one I'd have got stuck with.
Yeah, and we say that because we can pick on him. He takes it. Let's be honest,
he's a good egg, and he loves racing.
Yeah.
You can't take that away from the kid. I mean, he loves racing. He works in racing, and so it's been fun. He does, I know he wears. He tries to wear a lot of hats some nights, but he's fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. And fun to work with. I mean,
Yeah,
again,
he does a good job.
We
He
tease him
sure
all the
does.
time, but it's because that's again that little brother you got to slap
Yep.
around once in a while. So
No, he does a good job.
all right.
sure. Yep.
Since the dwarf cars,
Yes.
you have managed your way into Knoxville Raceway.
Yep.
You call drag racing in Eddyville every once in a while
Yeah.
still. What, 2 or 3 times a year probably?
A couple times.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yet you've also landed yourself on TV gigs as well.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact, I don't want to say, dare I say, make a career because you still have a real job, but
Right.
you take on TV gigs as much as possible still.
Yeah, I mean, I've like I told you before, I'm super lucky.
Right.
I took a hobby that I had no experience in, and have turned it into a pretty decent second job.
Right. You've done MRN.
Yeah. So I did my first TV race was for ESPN
Right.
at the Chili Bowl. Roger Hess was our producer then, and I don't even quite remember how that happened, other than I was supposed to announce at the Chili Bowl, and the as we like to call it, the announcers union didn't come through, and and so anyway, so I got suggested to someone that
I had
do the
press
TV.
credentials like that down there one time too. So.
I got suggested to someone that I do the TV broadcast, and so I did it. Did infield interviews and stuff for ESPN.
Right.
And then got the opportunity to do other TV stuff here, and that worked out kind of like getting my announcing job here did. In that, I told someone one night after the races during the Nationals that I could do every bit as good as the infield pit reporter that they had. All I needed was a chance to do it.
Right.
And we all laughed and ha ha ha, didn't even talk about it anymore. That was it. My conversation ended. And then about a year later, Bruce Nemeth, whom we all know around here, called me up and said, "Hey, do you really want to do TV?" And I'm like, "Sure." Not thinking that I was going to get to do it.
Right.
And he says, "Well, there's a pit reporting spot for the live TV broadcast of the Knoxville Nationals. If you want to do it, you can do it."
Since you're going to be here anyway.
Yeah. And so it's like, of course, I immediately said yes.
Right.
Got off the phone and thought, what have I just promised I'm going to do?
Right.
I've never done TV before, other than the Chili Bowl thing. And oh, by the way, it's live on TNN at the time. And so I did it. And it was awesome. And I think it went pretty well.
I remember that because, in all honesty, I'm going to pick on you a little bit. You were more nervous than any of my marriages.
Oh, dude. I was so nervous.
Yeah,
because
you were sweating.
I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right. And so anyway, I did that. Went really well. Everybody was super happy. Then it kind of became that thing where Cappy would ask me at the beginning of the year, "Hey, if we do TV again this year, do you want to do it?"
Sure.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And so he was really good about letting me have those nights to do TV during our biggest race of the year. And I just got lucky to meet the right people along the way. And I always said that if I could ever get a chance to do TV somewhere besides Knoxville, I could probably make something of it.
Sure.
And so a couple of those opportunities came along. And, I always wanted to do it full time. Never got that chance. Still haven't gotten that chance. And at this point in my career, I'm okay with that now.
Right.
But I got to do it enough times that it kind of filled the urge that I had to want to do it full time. There were a few seasons where I would do 14, 15, 16 shows a season.
Right.
And, when you're holding a real job and announcing here on the weekends, and that was a lot, and so I did that and parlayed that into the Torque Off-Road Series.
I was going to say, because you weren't just doing sprint cars, you were doing everything.
Doing sprint cars, late models, anything really. And then I got a call one day. Pete Richards, who was one of my producers, recommended me to somebody else that said, "Okay, let's give him a call." And I got a call one day, and Greg Oldham, who is now one of my really great friends, called me up and said, "Hey, saw what you did at the Knoxville Nationals. Would you like to do off-road trucks?" And I'm like, "Well, I'll do them. I've never seen one before,
Right.
but I'll do them." And so he said, "Well, the good news is you're going to get to do it with two people that you know, so it should be really easy for you." And those two people were Bobby Gerald and Brad Doty.
Nice.
So the TV crew were 3 sprint car guys doing off-road trucks.
It was dirt.
Yeah, that was kind of where the similarity came from.
Yeah.
So we did that for 2 seasons.
Right.
which
in
was
some
really
weird
fun.
in some weird places too.
Oh yeah, like Bark River
Yeah.
and some places in Wisconsin. Went to Las Vegas and did a race there.
Yeah.
And but honestly, Mike, was a great time. I got to where I really liked those trucks because, quite honestly, even though they fly apart and the fenders come off, they're quite advanced. Like lots of telemetry and technology and stuff like that.
It's more than just going out and buying a truck and putting a roll cage in it.
Yeah. And so had a great time doing that. Did that for 2 seasons, and then Torque went away.
Is it safe to say the reason, besides the trucks and the technique of it, is it safe to say one of the reasons you liked it because of the crew you were working with? Because I remember I remember seeing posts about sitting around in the hotel lobby talking to my best buds, blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, for sure. One of my favorite photos, and I don't know if you've seen it, is Brad Doty, Bobby Gerald, and I in a hotel, and we had Knoxville on my laptop, and we took a selfie of us watching the sprint car races,
Right.
and we just made it was so cool because the teams even knew that we were sprint car guys, and they would give us a hard time about it.
Sure.
But they treated us like we were family, and so it was really cool, and to see the amount of respect they gave Brad for being a Hall of Famer, and that was really awesome to see, and. So we did that for a couple seasons. Then that series went away because of Lucas Oil and the strength that they had in their off-road series. And so then it was just back to doing. Did the Chili Bowl, did Knoxville Nationals, did some late model stuff for Lucas at a bunch of different racetracks around the country. And then I had a chance to go up and audition at the Iowa Speedway for a chance to do MRN.
Right.
And so I went up there and did the audition. I remember calling Greg Stevens. I was just about to Newton. And again, it was one of these nights where it was an afternoon deal, but I was so nervous. Like stomach hurt, wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it, nervous.
Right.
And so I called him up, and Greg gave me some pointers, and Greg's been really good to me over the years as far as advice and stuff like that. And so I went there and I just did what he said. And he said, just remember, it's just like a sprint car race, and every one of the guys you're going to talk to is Steve Kinzer. And I'm like, okay,
good point.
And so I kept telling myself that, the whole day I was there. And so I did this interview with those guys and never heard anything. Like the rest of that season, never heard anything. The next season comes around, didn't hear. I thought, win some, you lose some,
Right.
And then got a call middle of the summer, and they asked if I'd want to go do a race, and it was a truck race. And so I said, sure, I'll do it. And so I went up and did it. It was at the Iowa Speedway, and went up and did it. I did pit reporting. And quite honestly, I told everybody there that I'm not a great pit reporter. And I really wanted the chance to do turn announcing. That's really what I wanted to do.
Right.
Because it's more like what I do here. I can just get up there and talk about what I see.
Right.
And when you do pit reporting in a NASCAR race, it's not easy because you're listening to the teams, you're listening to the program, you're talking to it's a lot. It's not easy. And so, but they were like, oh no, you're doing fine. And so I did some of those, and then finally got a chance to do some turn announcing, and I kind of just stayed on the rotation as the fill-in guy. So which was fine, because it was like I'll just take what I can get at that point, and because if I did a full-time deal, it was going to mean I had to leave here. And I kind of gotten to the place where I'm like, okay, if I can get that chance,
Right.
I'd do it. And
we had that conversation.
yeah, and so anyway, it never came along, which is fine. And so I did that, and so doing a combination of I've done everything: drag racing, IHRA drag racing, late models, stock cars, Xfinity Series, NASCAR trucks. I've done a lot of really cool stuff, and called a lot of really cool races. Called a lot of first-time winners races here, which has been really neat. So
Last weekend alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, last weekend alone. We mentioned you still race once in a while. You're go-kart racing again.
Yeah, I'm back to go-kart racing again. So Margay, which is a chassis builder,
Right.
They have a series called the Ignite Series. And Josh Holt from My Race Pass and Ross Van Eck and Mike Long, who was with EMI, and they all race in this series. And so we're at the Chili Bowl having dinner one night after the races, and we're talking about it, and I'm like, well, I used to race go-karts, and we get to talking about this series they run 7 weekends, and blah, blah, blah. And winter goes, and then the next summer comes around, and I'm like, I kind of getting the itch to do it. And, so I went online and found it and bought a cart, and, it was the best. You'll love this because I won't ever forget it. Ross and Josh told me,
Right.
$3,500, all you got to spend, you go racing. And I'm thinking, sign me up. That's easy.
You knew better. You think about it.
$20,000 later, I'm racing go-karts now.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
The $3,500 was just to get going.
Yeah.
You know?
That was a sign in on the web.
Yeah, right. So racing go-karts and Kevin and Guyla at Seafoam sponsor me.
Yep.
And super thankful for that. They helped me out a ton. And we don't do it. We do it for fun.
Right.
You know, I don't have any grandeur ideas of anything coming from it.
You're not getting that 20 grand back.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, we with COVID this year, we haven't got to race much. But the nice part about it is it's like one weekend a month. You know, I was going to have to miss some nights here, but because we didn't race, I didn't have to miss. But but we race paved road courses. So the beauty of that is I don't have to wash it. I mean, it's not muddy after the end of the night. Everything's pretty spec, so you don't have to have the tire of the week and the pipe of the month and all those things that we had before when I raced go-karts. But we race at some cool places, and that's probably what's been the most fun, namely the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah, you were telling me you were out there one time. Like, you're where?
So last year, it was this weekend. I didn't come. I wasn't here for this race last year because we were off racing, and they have a road course in Turn 3 that parlays into Turn 4. And so we raced there for 3 days. And then on Friday night, so you qualify on Thursday and Friday. And on Friday night, they put everybody in groups. There's like 600 go-karts there. And they put everybody in like groups of 100. And they let you take a lap on the big track. Mm-hmm. Coolest thing I've ever done in my life. There were so many things I didn't know about that racetrack until I got on it. Like for example, when you walk on that racetrack, it doesn't feel like you're walking on blacktop.
Yeah.
Like it's almost got a little cushion to it almost. But what probably surprised me the most is when you look down the straightaway, the amount of banking that there is in the corner.
Yeah, because on TV you can't tell.
On TV it looks flat.
Yep.
But let me tell you, it isn't. And when you go across the yard of bricks, it's like dunk dunk. You know, it's not smooth. Which surprised me because here I'm thinking, you know, these Indy cars going a couple 100 miles an hour, that must be really smooth, right? No, not even a little. But Mr. Bowles allows USAC to put on a race there, and really thankful. That, Mike, probably one of the coolest things I've ever done. And never did I mean, it's pretty neat to say that you raced at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
And here I thought the coolest thing you ever done was racing me against go-karts and slideways.
But no. The best racing against you memory I have was taking $2,000
there we go.
from you.
Yeah, we're out of time.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
We're running out of time.
Uh-huh. $2,000 you lost that
All
one.
right. Well, it was donated by other people. Let's
Yeah,
be
but you
honest,
lost it.
It wasn't our money. Yeah. We didn't play with our money. Let's be specific
it was
about
only
that.
not our money because after we raised the first 1,000, Cappy said we couldn't keep it.
Yeah, that was like, what happened there?
Yeah.
I remember we both looked at each other. What do you mean we can't keep it? You
So
know?
long story short, folks,
Yes.
what happened was Mike and I
Here we
challenged
go.
each other to a race,
Yeah.
and
You
the
cheated.
deal was
Cheater.
four-wheeler race.
Cheater.
He can get his four-wheeler. I can get any four-wheeler I want.
Cheating.
Well, I happen to know someone that had probably
Happened to.
$15,000 in
Yeah.
the engine of his four-wheeler.
Yeah.
And so I called him up.
Yep.
Said, hey, I got this race going on. One lap around the Knoxville Raceway. We raised $2,000. The winner gets to give it to a charity. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, no problem. So I get it, and I bring it out here, and I mean, it runs on Blendzol.
I got a
and
Polaris 400, just to be clear here.
high octane gas, and like it burns your eyes, right? It's so rich. And,
Yeah, Doug Cooper helped hook me up with this four-wheeler. Yeah.
and I went out there and just absolutely kicked his butt.
Technically, you didn't kick my butt. At the line, you were slightly ahead of me.
If slightly is a half a straightaway, you're right.
I also dodged in the back gate and tried to cut through the pits to beat you, and it didn't work.
And it
either,
didn't
so.
work. And it didn't work.
But I did beat you at slideways.
Yeah, you destroyed it. That's why you can't go back there.
We keep talking about that. All right, we got to talk about some racing, and I'm going to tell one more story. That's going to be there were so many. Working with you now, how many years have you been working now? 20.
This is 24.
Okay, so I'm on 23. I always have to go back and do the math. Over 23 seasons, I put you in a couple of moments where you're literally was speechless or something had happened, and
We can't talk about that.
not that one, not that one. No, we can never talk about that one. Unfortunately, it was a tragedy that happened that night, but I ended up having, it was practice night, and I had to go down in the infield because our plan was to distract the people there. And my daughter was 4 at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, you stay up here with Tony, because she couldn't go down the pits.
Right.
That was the rule. There was no kids in the pits back then.
Right.
And I said, you stay with Tony. I'm going to go to work. And she was cool.
Yeah.
And you were cool until about 10, 15 minutes later.
Yeah. Sam says to me, I have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Mike, go to 2.
don't know what you're going to do,
Yeah.
but.
By the way, go to 2 is our channel to talk on.
Yeah.
Stay off the official channel. But, yeah. And I
Yeah.
said, well, you got to take her. And no offense, but you kind of sucked at being the uncle that night.
Well,
You know.
you didn't tell me I was going to have to be responsible. You just said watch her.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you didn't talk to me for the whole week after
that was
that.
not
So,
good, dude. That
oh,
wasn't
well.
cool.
Still a blast.
Yeah.
And now my grandson is 4 years old, believe it or not.
Well, it'd be easier to take him because,
Yeah,
you know,
you get that.
of course, I don't understand at that time. I'm like, okay, I got this little girl. Do I take her to the boys' room? Do I stand
Right.
outside what do I do? You know, and
The biggest thing you pray for when they're that tiny, wipe my butt. You
Yeah.
don't ever want to hear that.
she to win home dirty.
Yeah, so.
Tired of doing this? Get a can of this and spend more time doing this. Seafoam helps engines start easier, run smoother, and last longer. Seafoam. Seafoam! Help your engine run smoother and last longer with Seafoam motor treatment. Just pour it in. Seafoam works to clean your fuel system, clean your oil system, and stabilizes fuel up to 2 years. Make the proven choice. Seafoam motor treatment. Available everywhere automotive products are sold.
Race fans, the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum is open 7 days a week, year-round, for you to come in and check out all of the wonderful race cars on display in the museum. And our online store at sprintcarstuff.com is open 24 hours a day for you to check out everything that we have in stock for sprint car fans. Whether it's for a birthday, anniversary, or Christmas, sprintcarstuff.com has it all. That's at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum in Knoxville.
Hey, wanted to say a big shout out and thank you to Tony Bokhoven for coming on in there a couple weeks ago and apologize for not getting that back up there. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. We'll see everybody next time.